We're going to be having a really good panel coming our way, which is talking all about your creative testing for your UA. A look into the future, which will be interesting. So, we have Stephen Bowes from Unity Technologies, who's going to be our moderator. Then we have Antti Paikkala from Small Giant Games, Misha Syrotiuk from Huuuge Games, and Tom Collard from King. So while they're getting themselves all set up, please remember to put your headphones on because you won't be able to hear the presentations. If you put your headphones on, you'll hear my wonderful, sweet voice saying sweet nothings to you, and there's quite a lot of nothing going on here. Just while they're setting up as well, I might as well just reinforce the fact that this is day one of Pocket Gamer Connect, which is the best conference for mobile games. And we have some amazing sponsors, and I do encourage you to go and take a look at all the different stands. Everybody's there to talk to you. Hopefully not too salesy, but definitely it's a big education, even just walking up and seeing everybody at their different stands and booths. So our platinum sponsors today are Agora, Apps Flyer, and App Gallery. And then we also have our gold sponsors, which is Share It, Transperfect Gaming, Apps Flyer, AppLovin, Unity, Moloko, Meta, Freeverse, AudioMob, Quali, Liftoff, Adjo, Xsolar, Data.ai, Pangle, and Digital Turbine. Are we all ready? No, we're just getting there. We've got our moderator ready now. So, Stephen, I'm going to hand over to you to kick off our panel session. Everyone, this is not questions at the end, but I'm sure the gentlemen, if you see them in the room today, just go and talk to them. Everybody's here to share and educate. So kick it off, guys.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks, Jackie. Guys, thank you for joining us here today. Just to introduce myself first, I'm Stephen Bowes. I'm a senior client partner here at Unity, looking after our user acquisition clients. And with me here, I've got Tom from King, Antti from Small Giant, and Misha from Huuuge. So thank you guys for joining us. Do I have a clicker for the... Sorry. There are some slides that are supposed to be on the... Nothing like Monday morning technical issues. Oh my god, it's Tuesday, oh my god. Perfect. Maybe I need some more coffee. Okay. Is it working?
Just a second, I just got your slides.
Yeah, no worries. So, well, I guess I've done the intro, so I can just discuss what we're going to talk about. First, I'm going to discuss the pillars of creative testing with Unity, things that we find important. And then following that, I'm going to discuss our growth and monetization report at Unity, which we published for 2022. And then after that, I'm going to use my esteemed panel here to discuss some topics on ad creative testing, how it has evolved over the years. We're going to look at some blind spots for creative testing, and then discuss some privacy changes and how we're testing with iOS 14 changes. And then we're going to look at what the future holds for UA creative testing. So, I guess show you my little cue card. Are we on? I know. Here we go. Perfect. Great. So there are lovely faces. Session details. Cool. So pillars of creative ad testing. So focusing on 3 pillars, which is important for testing your creatives for UA, is finding the best testing method. So you want to make sure that you're working with the right partner in order to test properly, understanding what audience you should go for. I know I'm biased, but I'd recommend Unity Ads to do that with. You should also pick the right testing tools, so considering whether you should do split testing or creative A/B testing. And then you also should look at different optimization events in which you should reference to, using ad hoc budgets or fast or slow-paced testing methods. It's quite important. Second pillar is focusing on the data. So picking the right KPIs to track. For the most part, I think for you guys, you look at IPM, but it's also important to look at CPI for each creative to get a full holistic view. And it's also important to look at looking at your data and ensuring that you're recording this properly and sharing this with your data team as well as the creative artists. And in my opinion, the most important is iterating with performance artists. So there's no point putting all of this effort and resources and financial resources into testing your creatives if you're not going to record this data properly, share it with your creative team so that they can then iterate your creatives and make new ones built off on that data. Cool. So we published our Mobile Insights Growth and Monetization Report this year. And I've pulled out a few important points for us, or a few important points in terms of creative testing for us to discuss. So the first one here is on what is the most effective creative characteristics that you should include within your creatives. We have found that over 86% of the games that are advertised on Unity show true game content in their creatives. This is important, and we found that it has resulted in a higher click-through rate as well as conversion rate because viewers of the creatives are more trusting of the creatives because they show actual gameplay. We found that creatives that show false gameplay or exaggerated gameplay often have lower click-through rate and conversion rate because users usually respond and hate bait-to-switch creatives. The second one is that we found that with mid-core and hardcore games, we found that power-ups and upgrades are super important for that genre. They result in a much higher conversion rate and click-through rate. And then this is something that I guess we can all kind of assume to be true, but we wanted to test it. Loud music with a particularly heavy beat has become very prevalent in casual and hyper-casual games, but now it's kind of spreading across all genres, and that is associated with a significantly higher conversion rate. What is the most effective way to display game instructions on your creatives? So on the one hand, while on-screen text kind of makes sense for you cognitively sense for you to like understand how you should play a game, on video creatives, our analysis found that voiceover is far more important and has a much higher conversion rate. This is most likely due to the users having a much lower cognitive load when they're watching the video creative themselves. Now, I'm sure you've all seen the real money incentive ads where somebody's like jumping around with like loads of cash floating around them or money going into their PayPal account. We found that those type of creatives have a significantly lower conversion rate and click-through rate. It's a 60% lower click-through rate and 24% lower conversion rate. And this isn't just for social casino ads. We did see it kind of growing in other genres, but overall it has had negative effects on those creatives. Showing gameplay. I had this assumption, and I'm sure you guys know that I had this assumption, that showing failed gameplay when a user usually fails a level typically has a higher conversion rate or click-through rate. But we wanted to test that assumption to see whether it's true or not. And we found that failed gameplay, where the user usually fails or it fails to pass a level, results in a 60% higher click-through rate and a 50% higher conversion rate. Those numbers are really stark. And we think this is usually down to why most viewers of those creatives have a takeover mentality, where you want to like grab the phone and show that you can do a better job. Okay, do not show a real person reacting. So similarly with the money creatives, you probably have seen the ads where somebody's jumping around or like when they've got really upset when they've either failed or died and stuff. But our analysis from the report has found that those type of ads have a much lower click-through and conversion too. Okay, I'm going to stop speaking at you, but before I do that, along with our report, we also show our findings in soft launching and campaign trends, ad campaign creatives and best practices, some advice on in-app purchase and in-app advertising mix, along with ad implementation tactics and monetization and performance. If you want to scan the QR code there, you can download the report. I'll also have my email at the end if you want me to reach out to me and send it to me. Okay, so now I turn to my panel, Tom, Antti, and Misha. First question. So leading on your years of experience, I would like to just start off with getting an understanding of how creative testing has evolved over time. So Antti, I'm going to go to you first for that one.
Sure. Hey everyone, nice to be on the panel here with the esteemed host and my esteemed colleagues. So for me, I started doing UA in 2015, and way back then, obviously the industry was in a bit different place overall in terms of what kind of formats we had available, what kind of ad placements we had available, and that dictated a lot of what exactly it is that we were able to do. So, for example, in 2015, in like browser, Facebook was still very much a thing. The Facebook app was like largely the de facto place to go to also not only buy UA but test creatives, and that was basically on necessity based on there just wasn't that many options available. I mean, video ads were definitely coming up. There were a lot of good vendors working in that space already back then. But on Facebook, you do video, you do banner, you test these types of things, really based on what kind of inventory you had available. And then as few years passed, we had the advent of playable ads. That definitely changed things a lot in terms of also having to test a lot of different things. And on Facebook, you couldn't obviously do playable ads back then, so then you had to really go to different networks and go to the place where the inventory was available, and whatever the capabilities of said network was, you basically took what was given to you. That didn't mean always that the metrics were accurate, or it didn't mean that you were given all the data possible, but you kind of had to do with what you had. And then in more recent years, not only video has risen up, but then video plus playable as a format, either in forms of an end card or then just playable as a standalone experience after the video as it is, depending on obviously which network you work with. So I'd say the testing itself, the foundations haven't necessarily changed, but you have to be very mindful of the formats that you have available, and that's maybe the biggest thing has been changing, that we have to kind of evolve with what is given to us. But like you said in the beginning, IPM obviously has been available for us because we've always had impressions, we've always had clicks, we've always had installs. So that hasn't really changed. But in terms of the form factor, it has definitely impacted the big scheme of things.
For sure. Tom, does that mirror what your experience?
Yeah, very similar. And just from the creative production side, I'd say one thing that's changed is that we focus a lot more on optimizing assets, like optimizing top performers and creating iterations of those top performers, as well as just coming up with new concepts as well. But yeah, certainly from the actual products used, yeah, very similar.
Cool. Thank you for sharing that. Moving into our second topic, Misha, I'm going to go to you on this one. Is the UA team involved in the creative generation process at Huuuge?
Hear him. Sorry, your mic.
All right.
Oh.
How about now? Yes? Wow.
He was giving all the juicy gossip, and only we heard.
All right, so got stressed. So yes, our UA team is involved in the creative generation process, but not so. We have few teams that are involved in the creative generation process. First team is the creative team itself. So those are artists and the creative strategies that analyze their creative performance from the past, look at different tagging, but also play games themselves, etc. And then we have the product team, and product team may suggest a new creatives based on the product features themselves. And then we have the UA team, and UA team often suggests ideas based on events like this, right? So we have people present here as well, where we get inspired. We also get informed. We have a chance to connect with our peers, with our vendors, and then bring this knowledge to our team. For example, if we hear that there is a new format coming up, if we heard that, for example, Unity is doing video plus playable ad, this is important information to bring to our team and make sure that we have ad format created that will support these new features.
Cool. Thank you, Misha. Tom, do you think that the UA team need to be more involved in the creation of performance ads?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like Misha as well, we have a large team. We have a creative team. We have an insights team who sit between us and the games team, and we've also got creative analysts. But they're always looking for feedback from the buying team because, yeah, I mean, we've got the most sort of knowledge on what the industry trends are and what partners are doing. So yeah, super important for the buying team to be involved too.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, moving on to our favorite topic, iOS privacy changes. So how has your creative strategy changed after iOS 14.5? Misha, I'm going to start off with you again on this one.
Yes, just want to make sure that it's working. Good.
You can hear him?
So
Okay.
for us, and I'm sure for majority of other gaming company, iOS is a probably majority of revenue. So it's really important to test creatives on iOS. Unfortunately, due to the privacy changes, we have less information than we used to have. So for the simplicity of things, we actually test our creatives on Android today, and then we will apply the knowledge on iOS, unless there is a very specific case maybe involved. So answer your question, the creative strategy changed that we don't really test creatives on iOS at the big scale, but we rather focus on Android only and apply those learnings into our iOS campaigns.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Antti.
if I may, we have pretty much the same approach. So we do, of course, run a lot of ads on iOS still, and do try to scale that as much as possible. But in terms of creative testing, getting the learnings, Android is definitely easier in a couple of different ways. One, we can actually rely on all of the data in terms of having accurate enough attribution. That's a whole different conversation. But having accurate enough data, being able to get decent sample sizes with affordable enough CPI, at least in our particular case, and just generally having the ability to still run campaigns at scale and not worry about losing a lot of the installs. But for a lot of games, though, that have, for example, the luxury of sample sizes and are able to get installs and cohorts that are large enough, I'd still argue, and that monetize early enough. So certain genres, for example, like hyper-casual or the companies that have really been able to make hyper-casual succeed at scale, then iOS testing is very much a possibility. For other developers in other genres where they don't monetize super heavily in the first hour, in the first day or two, then it has definitely become a challenge.
Okay, cool. And from Tom, from Kane's perspective, have the new regulations changed in which the creatives are produced?
I mean, like the others, we do the majority of like the core creative testing on Android, so it's not impacted that. But like you said as well, it's important to repeat tests on iOS, and that's become a lot more difficult with the campaign and creative number limitations depending on the partner. But yeah, I would say with the Scam 4.0 update coming at some point, the 4-digit campaign identifier that we'll get, that might allow some more creative testing. At the very least, it should allow a little bit more breaking down of campaigns. So hopefully that helps.
Okay. We live in hope. Okay, looking at what are the blind spots in creative testing these days. So I guess, Tom, we're going to start with you again on this one.
I mean, we've talked about iOS, so I won't go too much more into that one. But one thing that I've sort of noticed as well is that, one problem of having a very formalized creative testing process is that you're effectively optimizing your assets to whatever placement and location it is that you're running those tests in. So something that I would definitely recommend is repeating tests in different locations on different partners and making sure that those results are indicative of your activity as a whole. So yeah, I mean, if they are, then it's great, but if not, then you might need to be running more creative tests in sort of live environments. Yeah,
that's quite interesting. Is that something that you do at Huuuge?
Yeah, but also to add on this is theoretically, the creative testing process should answer the question whether or not the creative is effective, right? So you look maybe at IPM or CPI or any other metric that you feel comfortable. So if it's effective, then you should push it to your regular campaigns, and it should scale, and it should bring you the users, attract the right users, right? But I think the blind spot here is that you still need to re-verify the theory. So the ideal process should be that it should be effective to attract users on the high IPM, and then it also should attract users that would be bringing revenue to your company, but it's not always happens. And also, for example, if you go to another country, it may be completely different. So the blind spot here, I would say, is that you shouldn't really trust 100% that this creative, even though it's effective, it will be effective at a high scale or effective in different country or effective in a different channel than you tested it on before.
It's always hard to extrapolate the findings out once you move it to existing campaigns. Cool. So, guys, I'm going to go to all of you on this because I think it's an important question. What tools do you use for running your creative tests? I'll go this way. So, Tom.
I mean, personally, I use ironSource's eco-impression share product quite a lot. I think it tends to be, one of the strongest performing ones on the market for actually delivering equal impressions on a app and site level within our campaigns.
Cool.
But yeah.
And Antti?
We've been using a few. So obviously we use our MMP, which is in our case it's AppsFlyer, but what we use them for is obviously to rely on the data that exists. It's like an obvious thing. Of course, you have a tracking partner, but it warrants noting that you do need to also check your creative level information on that and verify that at the end of the day, the retention also works on or whatever post-install metrics you might be looking at. We're utilizing 2 to 3 different networks and trying to get an accurate mix of what our live traffic would look like, but still in a way that where the networks in question have the tools in place to actually measure that. And then finally, we are trying to find the right mix of partners to allow us to measure not only the data that we get from an MMP or data we get from a network, but then the other creative attributes that are involved in various sort of basically using tagging resources to make sure that we're also looking at not only which individual file ended up winning, but also what are the elements within that file. So basically a tagging service for that is what we use.
Yeah, so on top of what guys already mentioned, we test creatives currently on 2 networks, so it's Unity and Facebook. And we either test directly on the networks themselves, or we use campaign management tools. So we use 2 different campaign management tools for our Facebook campaigns and 1 different campaign management tool for Unity. So we can do both on the platforms themselves, or we can we use campaign management tools to do that in a way effectively, but also sometimes there are automation options that help us to speed up the system.
Cool. Okay, full disclosure, Unity is about to release a creative A/B testing product in which you'll be able to A/B test your creatives. And all 3 of the panel here have had early access, alpha and beta testers for this product. So Tom, if you could just run through some of the advantages as well as the challenges that you've had with this product so far.
Yeah, really happy with it so far.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of cases where we've wanted to run, equal impression share on Unity campaigns. Not just for sort of early creative testing, but also on our audience pinpointer campaigns, to try and see in those environments whether creatives that aren't picking up are just objectively worse, or whether the algorithm's favouring older creatives. So yeah, it's been really, really good for us to actually test this.
I'm sure product are very happy to hear that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that in terms of the challenge of, because we've been using Unity as well in creative testing as well as in live campaigns for a few years now. And the challenge is exactly the quote-unquote legacy creative that keeps on winning and keeps on winning and just is at the top of every single campaign. But what the new product allows is for a lot more diversity to the emerging creatives in live campaigns, but also in creative testing, where the sort of initial front-runner creative doesn't just win out and take 80% of all of the spend, where instead we have good testing results while somewhat still mirroring the actual market of what are the things that the market demands. So it's definitely been a great enhancement of the live campaigns and of testing campaigns of ours.
Brilliant, cool.
So if I may add only, I will not be repeating all the benefits that there are, but I think the things that, well, you guys will add eventually, but we don't have this campaign in our third-party campaign management tool because the API is not yet open, right? So this is something that you guys will add for sure, but as of today, we can only use this A/B testing campaign in Unity dashboard, and for sometimes we would like to use it in our partners' dashboards as well. So that's just something that is not yet available, I assume.
For sure, yeah.
I'm sure it will be soon.
Yeah, definitely. I'll make sure I bring that back to the product team.
I think some of them might have heard it already.
I know. Thank you, guys. Okay, let's look at the future. How would you like creative testing to evolve to in the future? Sorry. You want to take that one, Misha?
Yeah, I can take that. So the way I would like to evolve is quite big, and I will do my best to make it work. But basically, my ideal creative testing process would be that the main goal for artists is to generate a great looking creative that will obviously attract the right users. And the goal of UA manager is to scale the campaign at the right budget to make sure that they are profitable, right? But the creative testing is this thing in between that not always people like to do because it's manual, etc. So what my vision in a way of how I would like it to look is to make it automatic in a way that when creative artists finish the piece of creative, it could be the video or the playable or both, they drop it on some sort of drive, let's say it's Google Drive, and then the system picks it up automatically and either create the campaign automatically in Unity, Facebook, or any other tools that you choose, could be also DSP or TikTok, creates the campaign automatically or adds this creative to existing campaign automatically, and then pauses it after a certain amount of criteria. It could be a 10,000 impression or $50 spent or 7 days running. You pick it up and then sends automatically email to your peers, right? It says like, this is a new creative that has been developed. This is the link on the drive, and these are the initial creative testing results on Unity, on Facebook, on TikTok, on anything else. And then a media buyer can look and say, oh, I manage TikTok. I'm gonna grab this creative because it has the IPMs that I needed to have, or I will actually not touch it because it's not good, but maybe for the Unity campaign management people, it's good. So that's how I would like it to look. And I'm gonna start working with my team to see if we can push it that far.
To build out. Antti, would you like more automation in the test?
First of all, I'd like to sign up for the SaaS tool that you're going to make in a few years. No, that sounds really good. So what I would maybe want to see, and I don't know why I just keep talking about MMPs on this panel, but what I would like to see is maybe just more tag-related elements and more things that each and every MMP could pass to each and every client just as a default. So not only looking at the campaign, ad group, creative levels, but also adding more rich data in terms of video length, video orientation, for example, music, no music, are they using audio or not? Just very foundational pieces that we're all sort of tracking individually, but it's very hacky in a sense that everyone has their own little Google Sheet set up where they are putting the things that are attached to the file names and all of that. But that needs to be part of more and more studios just coming in out of the box. So I really think that there could be network leadership, there could be MMP leadership in terms of just allowing more and more studios to get a hold of that data in a more approachable way, which currently we're extremely limited so far. Yeah. But that's maybe, from an industry-wide point of view, that's what I'd like to see.
Cool. And is that something that you would do at King, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it would be great. More automation would also be great.
Make your life easier.
Yeah. And also sort of, more data as well from the networks on, on our live campaigns. Things like, IPM data can be misleading if you're looking at it in just in a sort of a normal live campaign. Receiving sort of more feedback from the networks about what the algorithm's estimating for each creative. This because we may see one creative of a higher IPM, much worse delivery, and it turns out it's only because of the sources it's been serving on or the types of users that have been running on. So yeah, more data from the networks on that side would be great.
Cool, thank you. To finish, finish us out on a nice question, if I can go this one here. So, looking back on your wealth of experience running UA campaigns, if you could offer a bit of advice to a new UA manager or somebody a little bit less experienced who could be in the audience, what would that bit of advice be? I'm going to go to Antti first because you're looking at me.
I was just being courteous.
Oh, I thought you were like, you calling me old? No.
Well, I had that in the back of my mind, but I decided not to verbalize it. No. Basically, to piggyback on the point that I just made, make sure that you trust your analytics and you trust your game team in terms of having a data setup that allows you to confidently test and measure and do whatever it needs to not only scale your game, but also make sure that retention doesn't drop, monetization doesn't drop, and that and prices don't go sky high. Those are the main things. And then simply enough, use creative tagging as much as possible because it's free for you to follow all of the elements that are within your creative. It's just a simple setup in basically any Sheets-based tool. Do that tomorrow if you're not already doing it today.
Tom?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's an obvious one, but I would just say streamline your processes as much as possible because you're going to be doing this a lot. Investing a bit of time early on in making future processes as quick as possible is very, very worth it. And then also, think about, why you're seeing the results you're seeing, and trying to understand, what's causing different creatives to perform at different levels. And that means that you can be much more involved in the improvement of those assets and the conversations with your creative team and those producing the assets.
So leaning back on what you were saying earlier, how the UA team should be as involved as possible in the in the creative generation process.
I'm going to have a less process-oriented answer, but I think my advice would be make sure you have a budget for creative testing. I'll tell why, because creative testing costs money, right? And if you have a budget, general budget for the user acquisition campaigns, and it will come probably from this budget, and it will obviously not help you to generate a good ROI if that's your main goal, right? So if you test creatives in, let's say, tier 3 country, then it may cost you anyway from $20 to $50 per creative at least. But if you test creatives in tier 1 countries, it could be a few $100s, right? So then if you have 5 creatives, that's already probably goes into thousands per month. So make sure that you actually have a budget and it's clear where is it coming from. If it's separate creative testing budget that you agreed on, or it's coming from the UA, because if UA budget changes, then your creatives process could suddenly be gone if your budget for this specific network would be lowered, for example, next month, right? So prior to build all the processes, make sure that you will actually have money to spend on creative testing, because you don't have to have creative testing. Actually, creative testing is a tool that may help you achieve your goals, but you may as well achieve it in a different way. So that would be my advice.
Cool, thank you.
And because you said process-oriented, I'd also like to throw in one thing, because we are talking about ads that actual people see on their actual devices, at least I hope in most cases. Don't be afraid to also test not only iteratively, but test completely new concepts, and just don't just copy what the competitors are doing. Feel free to, of course, look at the Unity competitive insights that were mentioned there in the beginning. Send Steve an email, he'll send it to you. But also come up with new concepts. Please do, because I'm at least done with just seeing the same ad frame by frame, done by different companies, just in a slightly different way. And you might just see that being diversified also from an artistic point of view really makes a difference. I love the fact that you said performance artists in the very beginning in terms of the people that actually make the ads. And it is exactly that. It's jumping through different types of hoops and really trying to understand that what are the things that could make people click on this ad. Well, I at least think it should be about being creative and really grabbing people and grabbing people's attention, not just doing the same old thing that everyone else is doing.
For sure. Yeah, I totally agree with you, Antti. Cool. I think that brings us to the end. So I want to first say thank you to my panel. My email is on the screen there. If you guys want to reach out to me if you have any questions on Unity's creative A/B testing product or just want to talk in general. I'll also be around the conference if you want to tap me on the shoulder. I'm sure these guys also won't mind you tapping them on the shoulder. And if you scan the QWERTY code there, you'll get access to Unity's resources. So perfect. Well, thank you guys. And thank you all for joining us here.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. That was really, really interesting. I'm sorry we're rushing through. We don't have a lot of time for questions. But I will say, try to grab them at some stage. If you've got any burning issues that you want to discuss, especially the new testing from Unity, I think that would be quite interesting.